Check it.
What's up, Conroe? Welcome to a brand new edition of Nerd Thug Sports, right here on 104.5, 106.1, the sister stations, and we're streaming worldwide at irlonestar.com. As always, you can check out facebook.com/Nerd Thug Radio. That's where we make the magic happen. Yeah, that's where the magic happens.
It's true.
It's true in the sense that we're there. I don't really think there's magic there. I haven't seen magic in a while there. Anyway, unless Magic's that exotic dancer from the other night, in which case, magic happens. Hanging out here on this Thursday in lovely Conroe, and it's time for sports. This is Corey DLG, and with me as usual is little brother Nico. How we doing, buddy?
That's me. I'm alive, doing well, hiding away.
Well, if you're alive, then the assassins haven't done their job yet. But that's a talk for another day.
You might want to put on the Craigslist ad. That first one clearly wasn't working.
Let me just get open the Silk Road Backpages dark web website and get that taken care of.
There you go. Trying real methods now.
I read an article about that guy that was just fascinating. Actually, it was about the girl who was dating him and how, like, this is kind of twisted, but, like, they both were working jobs they didn't like, and they talked each other into starting their own businesses, like, together at the same time. Mm-hmm. So she started some little, like, boutique fashion website thing and, like, wrote, like, blogs or whatever, and he started the Silk Road.
And as later, you do.
He got like 150 years in federal prison.
As you do.
It's gotta be truly bizarre. The couple that like create businesses together.
It's like that one. It's like those just girly things. It's like when you and your man start a business, like start businesses.
Yeah. And she's like, we have matching businesses. She's like, I'm a blogger, and he's a black market arms dealer. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, excuse me? What was that?
What does he do exactly for a living? He's a black market arms dealer. It's totally fun. Really fun.
But it's just on the side, though. It's just a side gig.
He doesn't mean it. Oh, all right.
We're just using the value of the dollar.
Apparently, I was reading in that article that talks about the guy a little bit. So for those who don't know, there was basically a Craigslist for the dark web, and it's exactly what you think. It was like where you could literally get literally anything.
Yeah, like if you wanted anything, you got it. Illegal stuff. Very illegal stuff.
Talking about like fake passports, prostitutes, guns, drugs, like literally anything you want.
Literally anything.
There was a black market Craigslist, and Bitcoin was the only form of currency because of its anonymity. And essentially, the guy wasn't he wasn't trying to be a crime lord. He was almost like a free market capitalist anarchist. Like he just didn't believe in rules and regulations.
Right. Some say he's the real hero.
Well, and he's like a libertarian to too far of a degree, right? Like he's like, hey, let's make a
He's like, if people are willing to pay for it, it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, if somebody wants to buy it, they should be able to sell it. And so that's basically what happened is on this thing. He didn't outright say, hey, sell guns here. He was just like, this
whatever
is
you want,
completely unregulated. Do whatever you want to do.
Right.
And so people did. And very quickly, it became criminal.
Just in case you thought that humanity was in fact good, it isn't. So here we go.
See, I think that's where it's wrong. Humanity is good. But I do think that there's an element of like curiosity or darkness if left to your own devices. Like I think there's just something about the idea that like, oh, no one's ever going to see this. What's the worst thing I can do then? But I don't think that that's necessarily a reflection of humanity. I think it's just like a.
I was just saying, like all good things, we ruin it with horrible, horrible, awful things.
That's true. Like, yeah, like the idea of like completely unregulated economy. We then are like, okay, well, let's sell people. What?
Right? Yeah. Like that was immediately the first thing we did. Like they're like, oh, so drugs, guns, and people. Yeah, that's definitely one. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. That's probably not a good sign.
I don't know. It's like, I guess that's just economics 101. Like, if you're going to make a lot of money, that's the best way to do it.
Well, if you're gonna have a free market, expect uncomfortable exchanges, I suppose.
Well, that's literally that's the same market people had in, like, I don't know, the 1800s, 1700s. Like, that's how the world used to work. That's exactly how it used to go.
Do you want to sell guns or people? Feel free.
And drugs. Can't forget the drugs. Opiates were a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. Back then they weren't even relevant though, so it was okay.
Well, they were relevant. It was the only thing to do.
Yeah.
Other than kill people or buy people.
All true.
These are all true facts.
Hey, let's say you have a superstar on your team.
Okay.
Let's play a game. We're gonna play the game. You know the game.
I assume the game is I'm in the place of someone. So, okay.
Correct. Nico is the guy. Let's
I
say
love
you're
this
the
one. We do this all the time.
owner of the Houston Rockets.
Okay.
Congratulations, you own the Rockets.
My dreams.
You fired both Mike. Well, you didn't fire Mike D'Antoni. Turned down your offer and left. He said later.
It was because we hurt his feelings.
That and honestly, I don't know that he loved the makeup of this team. I think he feels like, he's got about like one more run in him, and I think he thinks that this team isn't close enough.
Fair enough.
I honestly, I truly believe that's what he thinks. I think they were knocking on the door. If they were going to get in, they would have gotten in, and I think he's like, someone else will. So Mike D'Antoni's gone. You got played a little bit by old Daryl Morey. So allegedly, Daryl Morey said, "Hey, I think I'm done." And you guys were like, "Oh, well," and there was some back and forth, and you guys congenially let him go with the idea that he was going to like help you find the new replacement and the new head coach, and was going to be really helpful and really available. And then, like 3 days later, he signed with Philadelphia.
Yeah, he said, "When the moon hits your eyes, it's like a big pizza pie." Daryl Morey.
Nice. So he basically plays you like a fool.
And then you cry.
There's really no way Philadelphia called him the day after he became a free agent and then they worked it all out in 2 days. I don't believe that. Daryl Morey is not that easy to deal with. So I really feel like somebody back channel negotiated like, hey, any interest in going to Philadelphia? And I think Daryl Morey was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of done here.
Yeah, probably.
My new boss doesn't like me that much. I cost him a lot of money on the China deal. The office is a little awkward right now. We just fired our head coach. The team keeps losing. I think I'll take it.
What you got for me?
And now, allegedly, James Harden's not returning phone calls.
Oh no. Well, that's genuinely not a good sign.
What's your level of panic there, Tillman?
Quite panic.
You're not feeling good?
Oh no, that's not a good. Nope.
Not feeling good, you say?
Not.
I don't have much more beyond that. Like, there's just some players who, friends of friends type things, and they're publicly saying that James Harden isn't taking the Rockets' calls right now.
Maybe he's just really upset. Or maybe he's really thinking about leaving the team and we're going to be totally out of luck.
Well, I think what you can basically With where we've finished the last couple of years and the way the roster is presently constructed, it's we've got no draft picks really. So it's basically a given that Harden and Westbrook could go for draft picks.
Yeah, like that would be the logical conclusion there.
It's basically a given that Harden and Westbrook are out the door for draft picks and probably a couple of contracts that we got to play out over the next year or two. Which means at this point, James Harden is not talking to people because I think he's in the middle of a fairly I think he's got like 3 years left on some money. I need to look that up, but I'm pretty sure he's got some time left on his deal. And so he's about to get dumped, and he's probably not happy about it because I'm sure as a team, they feel like they're super close.
Right, yeah. I mean,
However,
I would have to agree with him.
They just aren't. They're not as
Like
close as
we keep making it to the playoffs, but then not getting very far in them. Although to be fair, we get knocked out, but usually pretty competent teams.
Yeah, listen, we go late in the playoffs, but the problem is there's other teams that beat us. And now, granted, this is important. Golden State won't be as good. They just won't be. That little window where they were unbeatable is closed. They're now a great team, but they're not unbeatable.
They are now an understandably strong team.
Right.
Not cannon fodder, nor are they absolute god tier like they were for 5 years running.
Well, the 2-year window where they had Kevin Durant in addition to everyone else, no one was going to beat that team was going to the finals. There was no doubt about that.
Yeah, they're like, all right, so start of the new year, who's going to the finals with Golden State?
Right, who's playing us in the Western Conference Finals? That was the question. But now the Lakers are a great team. The Warriors will be a great team this year, probably. It depends on Draymond Green is starting to get older, and he's the third good-sized contract there. They're going to move Andrew Wiggins for somebody. But Draymond Green is the other older contract, and he's 32, 31. As he ages, we'll see where that team goes. But at best, the Rockets are playing for somewhere between 1 through 3. Like, it's not a given that they're better. And Dallas might take that next step because they're young and good. So yeah, the Rockets, while they have an opportunity, it's not exactly a given. And so I could see the players thinking that, like, oh, just keep the team together. However, it appears both James Harden and Russell Westbrook are politely twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the Rockets to make the first move in moving both of these guys. If you remember last year, Oklahoma City traded Paul George first and then Russell Westbrook within a week later, and stocked up on a ton of picks over the next 3 years.
Right, which might have to be our move, especially if we're having such a big change at the higher levels of the organization.
Yeah, because we might want to change how we even play ball. We might want to listen. The league right now is a jump shooting 3-ball shooting league, but maybe we want to play a little more inside. Maybe we want to go a little bit bigger. The Lakers went large and they dominated with that. Anthony Davis shoots threes and covers a lot of floor defensively, but ultimately he's a center. And, the Lakers made the center relevant again this year. So the conversation is going to have to be had. So yeah, I could see the Rockets modifying how they play a little bit where it's right now, the way they play ball, if you don't shoot a 3 or get a layup, dunk, foul, then they're not happy with the possession.
Right, because it's a lot of points. It's just math.
It's just math. They're just going to overwhelm you with valuable shots. And so I think that's going to change. I think they're going to move back towards a little more traditional basketball style of play. And frankly, at this point, James Harden has no interest in that. And I don't know why he would want to. he got a $200 million Adidas deal at the same time as he got a $200 million NBA deal out of his style of play. So why should he want to?
Why would he want to change that?
Yeah, I made $400 million over the last 6 years. What am I? I'm supposed to change something? Like, what? Are you crazy? When we come back, we're going to discuss some more interesting stuff, including the NBA announcing the return of their NBA season, like in 4 weeks.
What?
It's coming fast. This is Nerd Talk Sports. We'll be right back.
Check it. The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More is open on 1488 at 525 Woodland Square Boulevard. With comics, games, and everything nerd-related, The Adventure Begins is the one-stop nerd shop. On Saturdays, they alternate between having Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, and coming up, they also have cosplay crafting and trivia nights and BYOB nights. They're currently offering a 10% discount for limited time, which will be valid for as long as you grab your books every month.
Hey, Conroe, this is Corey DLG of Nerd Thug Radio, hanging out here, just enjoying my quarantine time at home, and I hope everyone else is doing the same, social distancing and minding their manners and listening to the orders while we get all this health crisis straightened out and get this pandemic under control. I hope everyone's doing their part to flatten the curve, but doing their part also means supporting small businesses. Local businesses here in Conroe, restaurants, things of that nature that have been able to stay open, they require the support of their community. So takeout is a good option to do. So reach out to those places, order some takeout food if you can afford it and if it's reasonable. I'm not asking anyone to risk their health, but the community has always relied on itself to support itself. And this is one of those times where, as Conroe, we can stand up together and take care of small businesses and entrepreneurs who have been taking care of us this whole time, helping Montgomery County grow into one of the fastest growing counties in all of America. Thank you very much, and stay safe, and stay tuned for more Nerd Thug Radio.
This is Rudy Tomjanovich, and welcome to Nerd Thug Radio.
Welcome back to Nerd Thug Sports, right here on 104.5, 106.1, these sister stations, streaming worldwide at IRLoneStar.com. Okay, before we went to the break, I told you the NBA has announced the dates for the new season. Basically, what happened is the NBA and the NBA Players Association, they sat down and they said, okay, we got to keep compromising here. We got to figure out what's next. We got to get back into the next season because technically they should be in a season right now. Christmas Day is usually the big kickoff, but they've usually been playing basketball for about 7 weeks at that point. So here are the dates. They came to an agreement. Here are the dates. Free agency will begin 6 p.m. Eastern Time next Friday, November 20th. And the NBA draft will be November 18th, so that Wednesday. So next week, they're going to have the draft on Wednesday, and they're going to kick off free agency that Friday.
Man, that Friday is like crazy.
And the season will start December 22nd. It will be 72 games, and that will preserve their big showcase of games on Christmas Day. Training camps are going to start December 1st, and it doesn't look like they're going to have the stadiums open to fans at all in 2020, and they're not sure yet about 2021.
So yeah, that's cool.
They're jumping in. Now, one thing everyone was talking about was more than likely the salary cap will go down. Well, part of the negotiations was the NBA PA had no interest in that. I said, look, we're not going to support starting a league year with a down cap. So according to ESPN, the salary cap will settle at 109.1, and the luxury threshold will be 132.6. That's the same as last season's, even though everyone took a hit. They're just going to carry over last season's numbers, basically.
Understandable. That was what I expected.
Now, to help recoup money, the league put a cap on the increases. They've announced an increase of 3% annually moving forward until the CBA expires.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it used to be every year they were going to sit back and adjudicate and do the math on last year's numbers. And what happened was when the new TV deal got signed, the cap jumped up I think it was something like 25, 30 million in one off season.
Mhm.
That's not going to happen again anytime soon. They're going to move at this 3%.
So they're
rate.
like, yeah, we're just going to go 3% just to make it consistent, even, and basically for them to recoup.
Yeah, and that's probably because they're spotting some money here last year too. Yeah, so lots happening, and it's happening fast. If you were on one of those non-bubble teams, I don't know how you feel about that. Like, you've had a really good 7 months off.
Yeah, it's like, it's been real, Chief. I guess I should play basketball again.
But a lot of leagues have been making some weird agreements here. The NFL and the NFLPA, they never do this. They sat down in the middle of the season here, and they made an agreement that if there's any more game cancellations due to coronavirus from this point on, it will automatically trigger an extra team from each conference going into the play. The conference playoffs will go from, I think it was from 16 to 18 or something like that. I mean, I'm going to double check that real quick while we're talking. But they turned around and they also made a deal about the coronavirus and just modifying the season. This has really changed a lot of business here, like on the fly.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially, well, I mean, it makes sense because basically they can't allow enough time to play all these games, so it makes sense that they'd be like, all right, well, we'd have to extend basically the number of people in the playoffs because we wouldn't be able to narrow it down fast enough.
Right. Okay, so the headline here is NFL owners unanimously approve playoff expansion if COVID-19 forces cancellation of meaningful games. The NFL owners unanimously approved a contingency plan to expand the playoff field from 14 to 16 if meaningful games can now be played due to COVID. And it's not going to reseed the teams.
All right.
It's only going to become a reality if the league cannot first complete the meaningful games rescheduled in a possible week 18. So the first thing they're looking at is we might do a week 18. We might stuff an extra week in there if teams have games that still need to, like relevant teams have relevant games that still need to be played. Right. So, like, right now the Titans are in the lead in our division, and I think they still owe a game schedule-wise. So, like, if Tennessee has to play a Week 18, but then they can't for whatever reason, then then all of a sudden they're gonna let two extra teams come into the playoffs and just play it out.
I mean, makes sense. It seems the best decision-making process.
Well, and coming into this season because of COVID, they had already allowed for a third wild card spot in each conference, simply because of the likelihood that the schedule was going to be weird and affected. So as of right now, it's a 14-team single elimination tournament. That's the playoffs. It always has been. Okay. This is something I wanted to get into. They also, in the meeting, they announced the rule. Owners also approved a resolution that will award NFL teams compensatory third-round picks if clubs lose minority coaches or front office executives to head coaching or general manager jobs elsewhere. This is in response to the lack of Black, Hispanic, Asian, Indian head coaches and general managers in the NFL.
You're gonna have to read that to me one more time. What?
So here's how this breaks down. Right now, what they're hoping to do is to give teams an incentive to develop more minority coaches, because if another team hires your minority coach, you'll get a third-round compensatory pick for developing a head coach of color in the league. You'll be rewarded for developing a head coach.
Okay.
Any feelings about that?
Well, I mean, other than like general feelings on affirmative action, like,
are you pro or against that?
I don't really know how to feel about it because, like, while I agree, like it can really lead to some really interesting people in the league and make it more open to people. I also like it feels unfair for something that wasn't earned.
Do you think
Like,
that they're not qualified? Like, do you believe really
no,
that they're not qualified, or
it's not that it's not qualified. It's just that there's an incentive for something that they can't control. Like,
okay?
he might be one of the best coaches in the league. He just so happens to be black, and now they get a thing for it. Like,
Well,
feels weird.
the team losing him gets a thing.
Yeah, it's like because he's good at his job and he gets hired, they get something for it. Like, that doesn't seem fair.
I can kind of understand it, except for when you start getting into the reality that at most seasons, there's been at most 3 or 4 black head coaches in the league. When you consider 90% of the league is black, when you consider
But I mean,
almost all
your pool is
defensive players are
also
black.
it's all. You also got to realize that the pool is also really small. The number of coaches isn't particularly large.
Right, but most coaches start out as players, generally speaking. Very few of these coaches were ever not players. Now, the traditional path has always been. This is why it was for white coaches for so long. Is the traditional path was black guys weren't smart enough to be quarterbacks, and quarterbacks are the ones who become head coaches down the road eventually.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of head coaches were former quarterbacks. Over time, obviously that's been proven to be stupid to say out loud, and we now have a very high number of black quarterbacks in the league. But right now, the only black quarterbacks coach that I can think of is Byron Leftwich. The offensive coordinator of Kansas City is also black. But other than that, there's not a ton of high-profile black coaches. And it isn't that they're not hireable when they're there. Tony Dungy, when he was in Tampa Bay, essentially made a point to hire an entirely black staff.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tomlin was on that staff. Lovie Smith was on that staff. I think Denny Green actually even did it first, and Mike Tomlin, Lovie Smith, and Tony Dungy were on Denny Green's staff in Minnesota. And like these guys all go on to become head coaches. So it isn't necessary. And at one point, it was the Tony Dungy, Lovie Smith Super Bowl. That's the only time a black head coach has won a Super Bowl, I believe. And it was the first time it was 2 black head coaches against each other. Like there's just a lot of things that haven't happened in the league yet that are sort of amazing when you realize the demographics of the league. Like if these are all the people who know and play professional football, how is it we keep only putting white people in charge of it?
Right.
Now, the NFL did have a rule for a long time called the Rooney Rule, which required interviews of minority candidates before you hire anybody. You can hire whoever you want, but you must interview minority candidates. What actually started to happen, though, was a lot of times teams knew who they wanted to go on with head coaching wise, and they would just interview somebody just to placate the Rooney Rule. So even when you have like a passive rule that just was hoping to get minority coaches into the room, it wasn't a good enough rule to help in the problem.
Right. Like it was what's the like for vanity? Like I interviewed him.
It wound up being kind of meaningless because you would see teams who would be like, it's believed they're going to hire Adam Gase. And then it's like they brought in Mike Tomlin for the interview and then hired Adam Gase. And it's like, and a lot of black candidates, they don't like going to those interviews because they know they're not actually interviewing for a job. They kind of find it insulting.
Right. It's kind of like a token rule.
Now, some of them, though, have taken advantage of it. Mike Singletary actually went in for the interview, and I don't remember where it was, but he did such a good job in the interview that
they were like, absolutely.
Well, the owner still hired the guy they wanted, so let's preface that. But
never mind.
Publicly said in a bunch of meetings that Mike Singletary needs to have a job within a year because they almost feel weird about not hiring him after the interview. He then winds up getting hired in San Francisco, and it doesn't work out there. Now, was that the right team for him? Was he the right guy for it? Who knows? but that was his only opportunity also. That's the other part of it is black coaches don't get rehired. They don't show up other places. Ron Rivera seems to be the only minority coach who constantly gets hired. And I think it's just because he's such a football guy. But I don't necessarily have a problem with any sort of affirmative action rule or any of that. I was listening to another radio host who was like, "This is racist to black people," and it's certainly not racist. The reality is, though, when they try and go soft with a rule, like the Rooney Rule, teams placate to the letter of it, but they kind of ignore it, and it doesn't help the actual issue.
Right. It's not really a relevant rule. Like outside of a very few specific cases, it's effectively just like
it's a formality.
You're right. Yeah. It's
Do
like,
we
well, it's
interview-
great. It's great to see you.
There's been times when teams don't even interview the minority candidate. When John Gruden got the job in Oakland, the $100 million job, the $100 million 10-year contract, there was some conversation about the fact that did they interview a black guy? Like, did they interview anyone for the Rooney Rule? And they got kind of like publicly chastised for it, but I believe that was it.
It really happened.
Yeah. So the reality is, when you've got a passive rule, people and teams aren't going to waste a lot of energy getting involved in it. But now you've got a reward opportunity, and now I don't know. Now I think it might. It directly impacts the skill level or like the quality of a team because they're getting extra draft picks.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a super high draft pick. I mean, third round is pretty good, but not like
pretty good. You can get some starters there. So if you've got a good scouting department, and you can find quality minority candidates who then other teams want to hire, this is the opportunity for you to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, let's have a top 3 defense and let's have it run by a black guy, and then when someone hires them away, we get a third rounder and we promote another black guy from, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's farm it out. Let's figure it out.
Right.
But overall, I like the rule. I don't have a problem, and I don't think it's racist. I think it forces the conversation about the fact that like, how is it that there's just not more black coaches and executives in the league?
Right. Yeah, that's an important conversation to have.
We're gonna jump out to a break. When we come back, we got more Nerd Thug Sports coming your way.
Check it. The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More is open on 1488 at 525 Woodland Square Boulevard. With comics, games, and everything nerd-related, The Adventure Begins is the one-stop nerd shop. On Saturdays, they alternate between having Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, and coming up, they also have cosplay crafting and trivia nights and BYOB nights. They're currently offering a 10% discount for limited time, which will be valid for as long as you grab your books every month. Hey, Conroe, this is Corey DLG of Nerd Thug Radio, hanging out here, just enjoying my quarantine time at home, and I hope everyone else is doing the same, social distancing and minding their manners and listening to the orders while we get all this health crisis straightened out and get this pandemic under control. I hope everyone's doing their part to flatten the curve, but doing their part also means supporting small businesses. Local businesses here in Conroe, restaurants, things of that nature that have been able to stay open, they require the support of their community. So takeouts is a good option to do. So reach out to those places, order some takeout food if you can afford it and if it's reasonable. I'm not asking anyone to risk their health, but the community has always relied on itself to support itself. And this is one of those times where, as Conroe, we can stand up together and take care of small businesses and entrepreneurs who've been taking care of us this whole time, helping Montgomery County grow into one of the fastest growing counties in all of America. Thank you very much, and stay safe, and stay tuned for more Nerd Thug Radio.
Hi, this is Kevin Smith, former Dallas Cowboy, Texas A&M Aggie as well, and I want to say what's up to Nerd Thug Radio.
Check it. All right, welcome back to Nerd Thug Sports Radio on 104.5, 106.1, the sister stations, streaming worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Before we get into anything here, Nico, why don't you tell our friends about our best friends, The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More.
The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More is open and at full operating hours. So if you want to come in, you're going to have to wear that face mask, but they do have table space available and private rooms. If you want to be a little bit more safe, they do have curbside and delivery options available. There are doing events in store. So Friday, November 13th, ooh, spooky, is the Star Wars X-Wing Casual Meetup. Sunday, November 14th at 2 p.m. is the Pokemon Casual Meetup, and the same day, the 14th at 6 p.m. is the Warhammer and Tabletop Warhammer Meetup. And then not this Saturday, but Saturday the 28th is the Digimon Super Presale Extravaganza Nerd Thug Radio event. We're going to be there all day. We got a big tournament set up. Limited number of seating, only 20 seats are available, and some of them are already taken. Make sure you sign up via the website. We'll post that link on our Facebook page as well. The window is closing. The time is approaching, and this is if you want to just learn how to play, come on down to the store. We'll be there all day. It's going to be a great event. First event of 2020, all the way in November, right where it should be. So it's The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More out there up at 1488. Come hang out with us.
That's right. We're going to be there that Saturday, November 28th. I'll be helping sign copies of my comic book that are on the shelf there, and everybody will be having a good time. We'll be hanging out all day. Nerd Thug Radio will be there, so come hang out with us. Say hello. I'll sign your babies. I'll sign your boobies. Whatever you need me to do. I'm here for the team. Okay. So I saw an interesting headline that I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to put it in context before we get into it. The Baltimore Ravens last year were one of the 3 teams in the AFC when it was all said and done. The 4, because they got beat by the Tennessee Titans in the playoffs. Okay, they were a dominant team. Lamar Jackson won MVP. He was an MVP candidate. I don't remember if he won or not. It might have gone to Mahomes. He was, however, the cover athlete for Madden. All right, so he had a great year. He was a quarterback, but he also ran for 1,000 yards, something like that, and then he also threw for like 2,000, 3,000 yards. He had a great season. Okay,
that's a lot of yards.
It's a lot of yards. Well, this year things aren't going so well. Before we get into it, though, I want to point this out. They are second in their division at 6-2. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 8-0. Okay. At 6-2, though,
Steelers are 8-0. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, they're just cruising. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, not worried. They got Big Ben back. They're just winning. That's all they're doing.
2020 is so weird. The Steelers are undefeated.
Right. The Kansas City Chiefs are 8-1. The Tennessee Titans are 6-2. The Buffalo Bills are 7-2. Those are the division leaders. So Baltimore is right in the middle of everything. On a regular season, they would already be the 5th seed. They're definitely going to the playoffs. If the playoffs were tomorrow, they're the 5th seed they're in. Okay, no worries, no doubts. By the way, Cleveland is 5-3. So
yeah, baby, Cleveland.
You want to get weird about it? They're 5-3, and technically they might still miss out because the Dolphins, the Colts, and the Raiders are all 5-3 also.
Oh, what? What is this season?
So it's a mess right now. It's a mess. However, the Ravens
like
are
king of the garbage,
and they're not having anywhere near the kind of success offensively that they did last year. He was asked about it on the Rich Eisen show on the NFL Network the other day, and he flat out said, "Well, right now, defenses are basically calling our plays as we line up." And he was pressed on that. They were like, "Hey, what? Do you want to expand on that a little bit more?" And he said, "Yeah, basically, we're lined up for our play, and you hear the linebacker. Now, everybody watches film, right? And so the concept behind watching film is you look for patterns and you look for tells, like in poker. And so when they're in formation, when they're in this formation, what do they typically do? What do they do most often? What do they usually do? Down and distance, do they usually run it? Do they usually pass it? There's certain things, no matter how well you disguise it, your team has almost an offensive identity or sort of a personality, like this is how they're going to play in these situations. Mm-hmm. And because of that, there's tendencies that teams are able to figure out. Well, Baltimore's offense is particularly easy to decipher because it's a lot of quarterback running. They'll put out 7 or 8 linemen, and they'll run for 300 yards in a game between the quarterback and the running back and everybody else. But it's all on the ground. So what's happening now is as they're lining up, the linebackers and the other whoever the defensive captains are, they're calling likelies. They're calling what's likely to occur. So they're lining up, and they remember from watching video that on 1st and 10s, when they're lined up in the I formation, they usually run left. So they walk up and they look at it's 1st and 10. Oh, they're in the I formation, and their strong side's left. Okay. So they're gonna call likelies. They're gonna walk up and they're gonna be like, watch left, run left, watch for motion, and they're telling their guys to pay attention to the things that are gonna happen in front of them that are going to tell them the play. Well, what Lamar Jackson is saying is as he's walking up to the line, the defense is calling all the cues for the play they're about to run. So literally, once he says hike and they start doing the things they have to do for that play, the weak side guard's going to pull. Okay, well, that's the motion that the linebacker was saying to watch for. But now that means the right side of the defense now knows it's a run left and can completely abandon all of their disciplines, all of their holds, all of their everything, and just pursue the backside of the play. And that means on the left side, when the guard pulls, the far left side of the defense is now aware that they are holding the edges. Don't give in on anything. Push off the gaps. Control the traffic flow that way. Try and force the play back to the middle because the right side of the defense is literally chasing the back side of the play, right? So suddenly there's nowhere left to run. And what's resulting is much shorter results in the plays. Defenses are queuing in on things. He's walking up, and as he wants to call audibles, they're literally checking to his other plays, and he's like, okay, well, I guess
they're literally reading him like a book.
Like a book. And the problem is the tendencies on a run heavy offense. There's only so many things you're going to do. You're going to run left, run right, run middle, counter, draw. Like you don't have a lot of other options there. So it's a lot easier to call.
Rough. So he's like, they know me too well. I'm completely useless.
As he's walking up to this happens in the NFL. It happens a lot. If you were a Texans fan during the Matt Schaub era, he didn't have the ability to audible out of Gary Kubiak's plays. And so there would be several times in a game where he would walk up, put things in motion, look at everything, call a timeout, and walk to the sidelines yelling and taking his helmet off angrily. And it's because the defense is lined up exactly for the plays that they're trying to run. He's
right. He's got no chance.
And because he doesn't have the ability to audible, he was walking to the sidelines going, I don't know what you want me to do because they're going to be standing right there when I run that.
He's sitting there like, this is terrible.
Well, it happens to everyone, but again, because it's a run offense, a run first, run heavy offense, there's not a lot of variety. So he's walking up and hearing them cue off, and as they're running the plays, they're racing to the same spots, basically. If the tackle can get to the edge first, then we can turn this upside the field and get 10 yards. Oh, but they're beating us to the edge, and now they're turning the tackle back, and now this is a 2-yard run.
Right.
And
so basically he was like,
it's a really polite way of saying that the coaching needs to change. Because essentially what they're saying is what we're doing out here is not getting it done.
Right. Man,
but,
it's just funny to me.
Yeah. Imagine how you feel if you're lined up there, and Peyton Manning used to on offense, he would go up and basically do the same thing to the defense. He would read the defense, and he's telling the line who the blitzers are and what's this and what's that. And I remember there was this great exchange. I think I've talked about it before on the show here between Ray Lewis and Peyton Manning, where they were just both checking into and out of coverages and plays as they were each calling each other out on the lineup that they were in. So Peyton Manning, the offense walks up, they put a guy in motion, and he gives Peyton Manning a tell on the defense they're going to play. And so he starts audibling and he starts calling hot routes and telling his receivers where he wants them on the play. And Ray Lewis responds by changing the coverage on the play. So then when Peyton Manning hears that they're changing the coverages and he watches the corners react, he then does something else, and now he's changing out of the play completely into a run play. And then you can see Ray Lewis acknowledging that they're moving into a run play, and he tells the safeties to come up. And then Peyton Manning is like, well, wait, if the safeties are coming up, well, now we're going to go back and do a pass play. And, like, all of this on a 40-second game clock.
Insane.
And it's great when two masters are at it like that. Like, that's not going to happen a lot of times in our lifetime. That's awesome. It's not as much fun when it's third-year pro Lamar Jackson walking up to get his face smashed in on a run play because the other team is already calling it.
Right. He's walking up like it's he's like, all right, it's time to play some.
They just called it. They just said it.
Oh gosh. They're exactly where I don't want them, and they're just gonna run into me, aren't they?
They played the Steelers, I think 2 weeks ago, and there was an interception, and the linebacker who got it, when he came off the field, at the end of the game, he had a quote where basically he knew the play already. We'd already scouted the play. They ran the play earlier in the first half, and I just wasn't deep enough to impact the play, so they threw it over me. So this time when they ran it again and we saw it coming, I just got further back, and the ball came right to me.
Oh, my bones.
Like, this is what you don't want to hear. Essentially, we already knew this play. We already saw this play. They ran the play earlier, so when they were going to run it again, which, by the way,
it, and I was exactly where I needed to be.
Yeah. I just didn't do my job right the first time.
He's like, I was a little off the first time. I got it the second time. Got him, boys.
That's not what you want to hear.
That's heart-wrenching.
It's not what you want to hear at all when you're running an offense.
Yeah, so basically I knew exactly where I needed to be. I just kind of goofed up the first time and was a little slow. The second time I got it.
Last year there was somebody that they just flat out said it. There was a corner, and they just flat out, like, they were like, hey, how'd you, why were you there on that play? And he was like, because I knew what the play was.
It's like, because I knew it was happening.
I knew what the play was. I knew where I needed to be because I know the play. And everyone's just like, oh, okay.
And just, like, not even, like, read like a complicated book. Like, this is just, like, and then he was there. Like,
yeah.
Four
listen,
sentences.
They're still 6-2. They're better than the bad teams.
No, yeah, like they're definitely
in
good.
Control of their own destiny. But
they're just getting shut out.
Yeah, what you don't want to hear is that teams are just straight reading you just so crystal clear.
The thing that's insane is that teams can do that and they're still 6-2.
Right. Yeah. Well, and again, it's because it's all about execution at the end of the day. If you know what I'm running and I know what I'm running, here's the deal. If I practice harder than you, I'm going to beat you.
Right.
All that talk and practice of fourth quarter, what do you got? Show me what you got. It matters. It does matter. Who's going to get to the spot first? Who's going to win the fight? Who's going to win the battle? Who's going to win the day? Take every inch, beat every mile. Like that's how football works. And yeah, okay, we're not complicated. We run the ball. Okay, we're running the ball. Stop us. And that's the problem for teams. The Texans knew Tennessee Titans were going to give Derrick Henry the ball 30 times. The problem was we didn't do anything to stop him from running 230 yards.
Right.
We knew they weren't going to beat us in the air.
But they just handed it to this guy, and he's just going to walk all over us.
Just beat us like we were Tina Turner. A little Texan sadness for you. I'm seeing in the rumor mill. I'm seeing in the Ripley waters. I'm not ready to predict this. I don't know. I'll tell you what I'm seeing, and I'll tell you how I feel. I'm seeing in the Ripley waters that J.J. Watt moves teams in the offseason.
Really?
He's potentially a free agent. It's an $18 million year that we owe him, but if we cut him, we owe him nothing.
Really?
I don't know if we're not any good. I don't know that we want to pay him $18 million.
Yeah, it's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow.
But I also feel like the Texans are the kind of franchise who's going to let a guy play until he wants to leave. Now, he says he wants to play for a contender, and that might be the bigger issue. But would J.J. Watt ask the team to move him? I don't think so. I don't think he would do that. I think he would tell them he's unhappy and that he expects us to try harder, but I don't think he would put any kind of pressure on the franchise to move him.
Right. Especially after firing our head coach.
Right. He basically fired our we fired our head coach because JJ Watt was unhappy. But if the wrong team made the right offer, I could see us being like, okay, well, sure. Or if we're no good and the cap moves down instead of up,
we just cut him because we can't afford him.
Not necessarily can't afford him, but
like it would cripple our team.
Yeah, it would hurt our team's cap flexibility. But also, if we're not and he could, why pay him? Like,
right.
Listen, if we're close, if we're competitive, if we like what we do in the off season, okay, all right, oh yeah, well, then the $18 million becomes important, and we want to play him and we want to keep him because this is the guy who makes our defense go. But
not like we can go very hard. Our defense is particularly good.
But if we're players away, if we are not anywhere near ready, if it just isn't looking good, nah, you let him go. All right, looks like we're kind of up against it by my clock here. All that being said, I want to thank everybody for listening. It's good to be back. Took a little bit of time off, but here we are, ready to finish the year strong. This is Nerd Thug Sports. Everybody, thank you for listening. On behalf of little brother Nico and myself, and the adventure begins, comics, games, and more. Same Nerd Thug time, same Nerd Thug channel. COVID's coming back. Make sure to wash your hands, wear your mask, stay inside if you can. Don't go places you don't need to go. If you're going out to eat, if you're going out and doing things, try to be aware of social distancing. Use the hand sanitizers. Everybody take care of themselves. Fight the power. Black Lives Matter. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Check it. Hey,